Gossip, tittle tattle, it can wreck careers. No one wants to cast aspersions. It can harm the way people are perceived, and perception matters. But there's clearly something awry, to my eye, at the National Portrait Gallery.
I was recently looking at the website of the National Portrait Gallery and I noticed there's an exhibition for Zoe Law. So I did a bit of Googling and I didn't find much. And I asked you, Dad, who is Zoe Law?
Well, I'd never heard of her. I love the National Portrait Gallery. I spent the best part of the whole of my career, really, actually, trying to get into the, as it's now called, Taylor Wessing. Before it was called the Schweppes. Before that, it was called the John Kubal, into their portrait competition. And it was a big moment in my life to have a solo exhibition. It was the culmination of a life in photography and working my way from magazines that our viewers will never have heard of to, working for the New Yorker or Vogue or Vanity Fair. That was the icing on the cake when I had an exhibition at the National Portrait Gallery of business portraits. It was called Harry Borden on Business. And it was actually a body of work that I'd created as a byproduct of editorial commissions for Management Today. The pictures that I saw advertised on the National Portrait Gallery's Instagram, I just thought, I've never heard of her. There are plenty of really great photographers. Forget about me. Alice Tomlinson, Abby Traylor-Smith, Peru, Chris Floyd. Lots of people who've been working, who've spent their whole life in photography. So I was just kind of thought it was a bit strange. I want to actually fess up. I've had my controversy. In 2010, I was asked to judge the competition. And at the time, I was dating Abby Traylor-Smith, who's a very prominent photographer. At the beginning of the judging process, we were told explicitly that obviously we would recognize certain imagery, but we weren't to say anything. We would just vote with our conscience. And I voted for her picture. Unfortunately for me, other people voted for her picture as well. It ended up getting shortlisted and it was a scandal, and it was thoroughly investigated. They brought someone in independently. It was very humiliating at the time. I mean, there were articles casting aspersions on Abby.
She was pregnant with your
She was
fourth
pregnant
child.
with my fourth child, Florian. It was a kind of lovely time, but also a stressful time. I mean, it was lovely that she was shortlisted. But you know what? I really liked the fact that they were so rigorous, that they cared, that they scrutinized the process and made sure everything was as it should be. I mean, it did look weird when one of the judges is awarding a prize to his significant other. What was wonderful is that subsequently, I think in 2018, I wasn't a judge, and Abby came second with her wonderful portrait, Fleeing Mosul, in the same competition. I think it was great. It drew a line and it exonerated both of us because, people think no smoke without fire.
It's an incredible image.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. On the whole, I love the Taylor Wessing, and I really like the current winner of the Taylor Wessing, which I think is a really arresting and interesting picture. I just thought it was strange that when I used to go to the National Portrait Gallery, you'd go and see Brian Griffin retrospective, somebody who has been part of the architecture of photography, who has kind of pushed the medium, who's an important person, who's pushed the art forward, being recognized at this august institution that we all pay for with our taxes. So yeah, I was just sort of rather puzzled by the name Zoe Law.
So after I asked you, you did a bit of Googling, ChatGPT.
Yeah, so we looked on ChatGPT, which has become a useful tool in my armory, and still none the wiser. ChatGPT couldn't really help. Doing this video, I don't want to be someone who is seen to be punching down. I mean, obviously this is somebody without much of a reputation, and it's great that other photographers get to share the limelight. I don't have any kind of quarrel with that. I would never punch down. But then going back to the old fashioned way of searching, Google,
Old fashioned.
yeah, the old fashioned way, I found an article from 9 years ago. Turns out she is married to a billionaire hedge funder, somebody who gives to the arts, and who in fact bought a Lowry and then sort of put it on display in a Manchester museum, which is a great thing to do and everything. Maybe it's totally innocent, but it does kind of remind me of what's happened in acting. So back in the day when I started, I came up to London, I went on benefits, I went on the enterprise allowance scheme, I got a free education. There were lots of people, and it started with David Bailey, who came from quite modest backgrounds, who became photographers because you could get by even if you didn't have a trust fund, and forge a career. But now, if you look at the acting fraternity, I mean, they're great actors, but a significant number of them went to Eton. Tom Hiddleston, who I actually shot, who I really like. He's a lovely man. But, I think Benedict Cumberbatch. Whereas back in the day, and I remember photographing Tim Roth, from a kind of an ordinary background, who was in Reservoir Dogs, who I photographed also, and alongside Tarantino. That's another video. And, Gary Oldman, people like that, now it's shifted. And it's certainly concerning where you sort of see somebody that's come out of the blue who has a big exhibition, and
It's on for about 6 months.
yeah, and you Google them, and if you Google Chris Floyd or Peru or Rankin or any of my contemporaries, you will see their work
Spanning
all over the
decades.
internet, spanning decades. And 9 years ago, she was a Tory fundraiser and a makeup artist. So I'm all for reinvention, but it strikes me as odd. I do love the National Portrait Gallery. I've entered the Taylor Wessing, and I've got more pictures in there than most anybody else, so I'm really committed to it. The other thing that's stark and annoying is that it costs, I think, probably about £27 to enter the competition
Per picture.
per picture. And then if you get a picture in, then you have to pay to have the print made, then you have to deliver it, then you have to have it picked up. It all costs money, and it's all impacting on a community of people badly affected by cost of living and the general kind of way that the arts has been corroded by the last sort of 2 decades and the digital sort of paradigm shift. But because I've got a picture in the Australian National Portrait Gallery, my picture of Michael Hutchence, I get the call to entry for the Australian National Portrait Gallery. And it's stark what you get when you enter in Australia. So, for instance, in Australia, let me change my glasses. The winner will receive a prize of $30,000 and a prize pack from our imaging partner, Canon. All finalist artworks will be exhibited at the gallery from 16th of August to the 12th of October. An artist's fee of $1,200 to everybody who's actually in the exhibition. An additional artist fee of $700 if your work is included in the touring exhibition. A copyright and image licensing fee, in addition to that, of $1,000. Domestic artwork freight allowance to and from the gallery. On top of that, you get your domestic travel allowance and accommodation in Canberra for the night of the exhibition launch. I mean, come on, NPG. At least if you're going to ask £27 to enter the competition, why not let the people who've entered the competition but didn't get in, let them go and see the exhibition for free? I mean, that's the least that they could do, or maybe give them a book. I mean, it's just kind of blatant profiteering. If I don't say anything because if somebody else who hasn't got into the exhibition says something, then they can be kind of dismissed as purely jealous or a downer, a Debbie Downer. But I'm not a Debbie Downer. I've had great success. I've been shortlisted. We have a great deal of affection for the National Portrait Gallery and for the Portrait Prize. But I think it's time the institution recognised that photographers haven't had it that easy of late, and our industry, is on its knees. So how about a little bit of support? I'm not doing down Zoe Law. She's probably a great photographer. I mean, check out the work and see for yourself. But you do weaken the hand of the curators who have to make that choice. If in the back of your mind you're thinking about funding and money. Okay,
But,
a bit different from our usual fare.
yeah, hopefully
But it's
it's something you're passionate about, and
yeah. I mean, as I said, I think it's very easy to just not say anything, and you know,
this is how change happens.
yeah. I mean, initially I was thinking it'd be a bit mean to talk badly about another photographer, and I don't want to do that. I mean, you judge the pictures for yourself, but I do think that the job of a journalist or somebody on the periphery, an artist or a creative person, is to speak truth to power. And I don't think it's punching down when you're a fundraiser for the Conservative Party
With
and
it.
you're married to a billionaire.
Cool. Thank you. And thanks for watching.